What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 325. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron
and John.
How are you two doing tonight?
I'm good.
Good. You both look good. I'm going to just say that real quick at the top of the show.
Man.
Yeah, everybody looks crisp and clean. If this is one of those times, all we're going to say, if you're listening and not watching, is just check out how handsome we are.
Yeah, man.
Today's a day that I showered, so I mean, this is a good day to do the pod. So, you showered too, Ronald?
No.
Oh, I was like, I thought we pulled the hat trick off.
But it's a special occasion. It's a special occasion when you shower, man.
No, it is.
It is. You mean you in general, or you talking to me directly?
No. With people.
Commenting on your hygiene.
No, he knows my hygiene. He knows it is a special day when I shower. So
right. Smell-o-vision is in effect.
Scratch and sniff.
Oh man.
Oh man. So yeah, today's episode we're gonna kind of go through a couple new, sort of new. We got a new episode of Hawkeye we're gonna catch up on. And then the French Dispatch, Wes Anderson's new movie, is available in a digital form now. So we're going to finally catch up on that. None of us saw that in theaters, right? Like we've all watched it on the video on demand.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's available on digital formats now. So we'll catch up on that. And then, usually we'll close out the show like we have been with just a bunch of also rans, just some other stuff we've watch, TV shows, movies, whatever. Is there anything at the top that you guys want to mention news-wise before we start talking about Hawkeye? I mean, this week's a big week. I know at least a couple of us are going to see Spider-Man No Way Home at the end of the week, so we'll be talking about that next week.
I'm excited.
Yeah, the day this show comes out, everyone should be watching Spider-Man this weekend, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Those comfortable enough to go and whatever level of comfort you have. If you are going to see it, you're probably seeing it this weekend. This is going to be one of those probably massive drop-offs for the week after. So if you don't want to be in a crowd, maybe wait a week. Yeah, I don't know, because it will drop off pretty huge, especially with Matrix coming out the week after.
Heck
so, but I don't know, news-wise, anything big this week that you guys mentioned? Anything, Ronald, John, anything that you came across that kind of sparked your fancy?
Not that springs to mind.
You sent us something on the thread, Ronald. I think it was you who sent it. The Ted Lasso Christmas short.
Oh yeah, there's a Ted Lasso claymation.
I think people should know about that because I think it's adorable.
Yeah. So there's been a series of random things related to Ted Lasso that are only on YouTube that you can check out. One is the origin story of Ted Lasso becoming a show, the return of Ted Lasso,
right?
Which is really two really cool things if you want to see the roots of this character. But most recently, there was a claymation special called The Missing Mustache. That's claymation version of the cast members of Ted Lasso. It's 4 minutes. It's really cool. Feels like a little companion piece to the show that, if you're a big fan of the show, I think you'd enjoy. So check it out. It's on YouTube, The Missing Mustache. It's under the Apple TV YouTube channel.
Let's also mention the upcoming film that looks awesome by the guys who did Swiss Army Man. This one is called Everything Everywhere All the Time.
Oh,
and it's got a great cast, and it looks everyone should just look at the trailer. Everyone Everywhere All the Time should just look at this trailer and just this feels. If you saw Swiss Army Man and you liked that, but even if you didn't like it, these guys, the Danielses,
yeah.
The Daniels.
Yeah.
They make interesting choices, and they really lean into their hardcore creative choices. And so them doing some kind of mind-bending stuff, again, with some of these great actors. Ke Huy Quan, if I'm saying that correctly, from Goonies and Temple of Doom, who we don't see often enough, I don't think, who oddly hasn't been brought back into the new Indiana Jones movies that they've been making. For some reason, they have not looked at Short Round as a possible person to bring in. I don't know. I just thought Short Round was a great character. I know that it might be viewed as problematic, like sidekick stuff now, but I still think that actor was great, and it's just weird we don't see him anymore. So I don't know. Right. I'm glad he's in this, and so everyone should check that out. That just looks like a really cool, unusual movie that gets into some of this multiversal stuff that we're seeing in all these comic book movies. But from this is exactly what we want, is for people that aren't chained to these giant corporations to make some of these crazy movies. So I'm looking vastly forward to that.
Yeah, and
Looks,
Ronald, you gotta get your A24 hoodie or something, man, because they're pumping this bad boy out.
I want to so bad. I want to so bad.
Q1 of
A24.
2022.
Yeah.
Uh, I think this is the one, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one that is opening South by Southwest this year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty huge. So that's a vote of confidence from the studio and from the filmmakers. I think this is also produced by Agbo, which is the Russo brothers production company.
Oh,
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, man, like the trailer is awesome, and Michelle Yeoh, Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. Just looks like a really fun movie, and
Yeah.
it's like a good taste of maybe what's coming soon, and hopefully there's more like it. But
And hopefully
yeah,
we'll
those are
cover it.
two. I hope so. Maybe we'll even be able to see it as a part of South
Yeah.
by.
I know what to do now. I know to add all the movies this time.
Yeah, that's what you do. You add them all.
Didn't know that. Didn't know that. It's like a lottery. You miss the lottery, you can't see the movie. But
Yeah.
what we didn't know is that you have an infinite amount of spaces that you could pretty much just add
Yeah,
whatever you want. So we've learned our lesson.
Yeah.
Damn.
we were babies then, Ronald.
We were babies,
When-
man.
Were we ever so young?
We're hard-nosed vets now, man. We're hard-nosed
come on,
vets.
We are.
All right. Any other trailers? I'm trying to think. Nothing else
No.
really stood out to me this week. Yeah, it's kind of been a slow week. Everything's kind of just funneling into Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah, it feels like
Just
it.
like all the eggs are in that basket. But okay, so cool. Well, I guess on that Marvel topic, briefly, let's get into the newest episode of Hawkeye. And Ronald, I think you should start it off just because you're the biggest fan of the show so far.
Hawkeye's
Oh
biggest
yeah,
fan.
yeah.
You're
So-
number one fan, starter of the president of the fan club, right? Like the show's fan.
You know, my only complaint is that, you know, Hawkeye should be like a friend. Like it should be pretty consistent. You don't punch me in the stomach for 4 weeks straight and then give me flowers on the 5th week like this gave me flowers. But the flowers that came were it was a bouquet. It was a bouquet. I feel like this was a very meaty episode where we're starting to see all the pieces that were kind of being hinted at during the first 4 episodes. There's only 6 this season, just so you know. So you don't, because a lot of people are like, I thought there were 10. No, 6 episodes. But a lot of the storylines that we've kind of felt like, man, what is this leading to, are all coming to a head. And, you know, with the introduction of a certain character in episode 4, we also get an introduction to another. And boy, I couldn't be more excited.
Okay. Last time the character they brought in was somebody that was hyped but known to be part of the cast.
Yes.
Right.
And a great addition. And I thought she in particular, that this week I thought she was really good. She had some great
She's
stuff to
great.
do this week. I mean, incredible in that scene with Kate Bishop, and also just all of her stuff. It really livened it up, made the thing start to feel more cinematic. I think even the fight in this one, because it wasn't like against a CGI or green screen backdrop, it felt a little bit more immediate, a little bit away from that CW quality that you're talking about, Ronald.
It did.
But I also thought this week, just because like I was commenting, not even like as a criticism, we were watching it and I was like, boy, this is so small. Like there's a scene where all the parties are converging on a junk car lot or a parking lot of some sort. And like the stakes are so low in terms of what's happening on screen, but we kind of are starting to tease out the implications of what's happening in terms of how this story fits into the bigger picture. And I just like that. I mean, I think that like I can see your point, Ronald, about how 4 episodes to kind of get to where they're going, it did feel like they were kind of dawdling or whatever. But I think that ultimately it strengthened the character stuff that we're seeing right now, because we have spent time with this new phase of Clint Barton. Jeremy Renner's really been very, very good in this show, and everyone else. Ellie Steinfeld, I mean, has been great, but also, the other people that have been added to the cast. So I just think that it's like, it's been marching towards this moment, and then last week they started hyping this moment. Like, oh, that's going to break the internet, silly thing to hype. But it did make everybody go, oh, I bet we all know what's going to happen in this episode. And today the headline was, what was it? Hawkeye's internet-breaking moment was just what people expected. And I was like, oh, okay, so I kind of know what that is, but I'm still excited to see how they do it.
Yeah.
And for that to be what it is, I loved how low-key it was. Like, I loved how, like, tossed off, low key. The episode ending on this moment that just lets you kind of hang out. They didn't blow the load, so to speak, of like the true reveal and like what really is coming. But the scope just widened. You know, if you're looking for somebody big to come in, and if you're looking for, frankly, someone who's like, oh, this is out of Clint Barton's league. This is someone who is like one of the big baddies, you know, that's rolling in, and it just feels good the way they're doing it. And it's so strange how it does tie it back into that Netflix Daredevil series so neatly that it really makes you wonder if all of that stuff is just going to be looped in. I wanted to go back. Last week we were talking about, or sometime recently we were talking about that statement about those shows not being canon.
Yeah, last week.
I was thinking, and I didn't add this note, I always took that not to be like, oh, those shows are garbage, but more like we're not beholden to every detail that was revealed in those shows because we're still doing our own thing. But I think just like anything like that, they've done it with the Star Wars stuff that's not declared canon. It's like they pick up what they like. And I think even more so than that, we're going to see I think Marvel's going to find a way to make it all feel pretty neat and tidy, you know?
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I don't think that this is going to be the only element that they start to double back on and bring in. But I loved how they did it. And I actually was like, you know, I watched it a second time with my wife because she missed the last few minutes, and she was like, "Oh, who's that?" You know, and it's like it's funny, but even not knowing who the character was, she felt the moment of like, "Oh, this feels like the show's deepening." But it is weird that now we have one episode left, right? I mean, it almost seems like there's no way this can't be just a setup for more stuff. Like I don't know what they can do in one episode that will tie this up in a satisfying way, because we know that main villain is not going down, and I don't see the season ending with Hawkeye going down. Maybe I'm wrong about that. You think Hawkeye's going to go down? Do you think they'll do anything that crazy? Like kill Hawkeye or something like that? Would they do that?
The first question I want to ask you, Steve, because I want to know what you think. Is that Vincent D'Onofrio, or is that just a Kingpin?
No, that's Vincent D'Onofrio.
I don't see how they would not bring him in. Yeah, that's the whole point.
He's in the credits.
He's in the credits? Okay. I just making sure, because this picture was...
We pussyfooted around it, and then we just said it. That's fine.
No, whatever. It is what it is, like at this point. But here's to kind of piggyback on that, the better question maybe is, I've seen some discussion around this, is this the same Kingpin from the Marvel Netflix series? Or just Vincent D'Onofrio playing Kingpin as like a restart, reboot, something like that.
So that's what I mean by the canon thing. Like, I think it's even worse to do what they're doing. To be like, this Kingpin's good, Daredevil's good, but Luke Cage, you suck. Or Jessica Jones, you suck. You won't be in this.
Right.
I think there's only one character that's going to be told you suck and be kept out of this, and that's
those.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I don't even hate it, but I'm just saying that's the whipping boy. Yeah. That's the whipping boy of the whole thing. You know?
Yeah, people have said it. You know,
I mean, it really could go either way. I mean, it really could simply be that, like, you know, they do appreciate the casting, you know, or even the performance, and maybe they don't see a direct way to tie that story right into the MCU proper. But like, you know, the approach could simply be like kind of sort of how Kevin Feige addressed the whole Charlie Cox of it all. Is like, if we do Daredevil, like he's going to be Daredevil basically. Yeah. And it's not to necessarily even say in any acknowledgement that like it's going to be the Daredevil from the Netflix series. It's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many weird things that they could do.
It's very cagey.
It's just like, it's a multiverse, guys. Like maybe it's a different version of it.
Okay, so that
buys them everything. That gets them.
It does. Exactly. It's a little lazy. It's a little lazy in the way that you could just kind of say, like, all the mistakes we've made are not going to be a part of it. All the things we're very excited about will become a part of the world. I do think course correction is pretty cool, and this feels like the best version of course correction.
But isn't that like the MO for comics in general, though? Like, you tell me.
Yeah.
Like, you're the guys.
Yes.
Like, that just seems like one of the greatest.
But
the also, everyone complains. Everyone complains, and including I think you sometimes, about these shows and movies having too much baggage and too much backstory that they're trying to pay off. So I think that like I would rather them do a hand wave and say, hey. Again, that feels to me like Kevin Feige not trying to disrespect the Fox X-Men movies, the Fox Fantastic Four movies, but move on from them. Oh yeah, multiverses, because he made some comment. Oh, it's all part of the multiverse. I think that's a way of like saying we moved on from it. But if they want to say a portal opens and Hugh Jackman pops out, I don't think anyone's going to really complain if it's a cool story. But what you're saying, Ronald, I think is true that if they take that as the lazy way to introduce things, like I think that the MCU still needs to do their version of mutants, their X-Men, their Fantastic Four, and it would be too easy to just port something over. So that's where I would think it was lazy if they leaned on it too hard.
So let me introduce to you a very good excuse for this usage, and that is actually Hawkeye, the episode of Hawkeye. Yelena disappears in the snap, and we've kind of not seen her around in this world, and this is a perfect explanation for why we haven't seen,
right?
Black Widow's sister kind of around when she's so close to her. So important to her, it's a really interesting usage of it. So look, give me that, but don't keep doing this. You have one more calendar year to keep using this snap as a fucking excuse. And if you use it more, I'm going to think you're being lazy at this point. You get a calendar, you get 2022, maybe the beginning of 2023. Don't use it anymore because it's one event.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I don't know that I agree with you.
You think they're going to use it forever?
I don't think they're going to use it forever. I don't at all. No. I think it'll probably be something that is easily faded out by the timeline you've prescribed to Marvel. But I think that
according to the conditions.
Yeah.
According to my conditions.
Yeah. But I think that what they've done is they created an event that is something that was like teased so much and they delivered. So I feel like they've earned this like ripple effect.
For how long, Steve? I'm not saying they don't deserve it.
I think a lot of these shows were planned in the wake of that, saying we're going to answer some of the questions people might have about the way this fits into the bigger picture. But I think I lean towards Steve's attitude about it, but I understand what you're saying, Ronald, in the sense that I think that this stuff has been happening in this middle period. They're about to get into this whole other chunk of story that I think that's when you would say now we've got not just that we aren't talking about Thanos as much anymore and the snap, but that, and we're talking about multiverse, whatever, but we're also involving Shang-Chi. We're also bringing in Eternals characters maybe. I think that in a year's time, the MCU is probably the face of it's going to feel different.
That's exactly right.
Now we are still we're still kind of in the hangover. But I think what they're trying to do, Ronald, and they might be doing it a little too much. But I think what they're trying to do is make sure that no one says you didn't really pay off, you didn't really honor the immensity of what happened. If this is a connected universe, wouldn't people still be shell shocked from this? But it's like my complaint that's like that, Ronald, is that, and I think that they're working it pretty well. But I find that the conflict of Hawkeye's past makes me think a little too much about Black Widow's story and Winter Soldier's story. And it's like that's the thing that's starting to feel repetitive to me, is the idea of a person who's saying, oh, I've done a lot of bad things in the past and it's coming back to haunt me. I think that is the note that is strange, that we've had so much of that just in the last year from them. But it kind of clears the deck of those characters who you might say we never did get to dig into the backstory of Natasha, and we didn't get to really dig into the backstory of Clint. One thing I love about what they've done with Clint's backstory is that at least his wife is sort of in on it. So when he talks to her,
I like that. Did John disappear?
I think we lost John.
He got the snap.
He got snapped. So he's talking shit, getting snapped.
So you see, that's the. You're back.
We lost you there for a second.
I lost you guys. So who knows what will happen on the actual recording? Maybe your recording is different from my recording. So
we said we said that you were talking about the snap and you got snapped.
You got snapped.
I got snapped.
Yeah,
well, what's interesting about that is this is incentive to listen and watch, because the watching will get you Ronald's side, and if you want to find out what it was like on my end, you'll get to hear my complete sentence. All right. Well, so I like it. I thought this was a strong. In short, really I think Hawkeye is going to a cool place, and I especially am excited watching that episode, knowing that I have a new Spider-Man movie in a couple days. I mean, I'm getting kind of silly about how giddy I am for this.
I'm so excited, man.
Yeah. I think that you mentioned earlier, just how small the show feels in so many ways. And we talked about this even last week when we were mentioning it. I think that they're doing a really good job. I feel like it's really hard to lose perspective on these Avengers, and to lose perspective on the scale of who they are as characters, who they are as beings, powers, all that good stuff. And I think that like it's a good reminder, even a bit with the Black Widow movie, but like, you know, this show specifically really kind of like doubles down on the idea of like, this is kind of like a guy just walking around the street who lives in this world, who's not like some, you know, rich billionaire tech guru, who's not blessed with some sort of godly power. He's just like a guy who was like a assassin or a trained, you know, hitman or whatever. Right. And I think that like, you know, seeing the day to day of that, I think that makes the show feel small. Like you see like the entry point into this organized crime ring that he like took out as Ronin or tried to take out as Ronin or, you know, whatever that all was. And I think that's probably for me, that's probably what I like most about the show is that like, it doesn't feel, the stakes don't feel as large as some of the other shows, you know, as interdimensional as Loki or, you know, even WandaVision. But I mean, I just think that you can kind of tiptoe around the kingpin of it all. But I mean, like the fact that kind of level villain is coming back into the MCU in the, you know, in this penultimate episode of the first season, I think it just shows like how much of a place Hawkeye still has in the MCU, even though a lot of people don't view him as like a favorite character, you know, and maybe there will be some kind of crazy Hawkeye's gone thing. I don't think that would, I don't know. I'd be really surprised if that happened, but I think that, you know, they are walking a line where, you know, his remorse, his guilt, his dealing with, you know, Natasha and everything. It's been really a good performance by Jeremy Renner. Like, I think it's the best he's been as Hawkeye in anything, you know, in the MCU. No comparison.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like, you know, I like the New York of it all. I like the holidays. I like just, and you mentioned it earlier, John, just to circle back on the Elena, like that whole scene, both when she returns from the snap and, you know, when she's actually talking with Kate in her apartment, like she's just fucking perfect. Like she's
having so
much
fun with it. You can tell too.
And you just want to see her so much more in the MCU and you really hope we get to. So yeah, I'm really liking the season so far. I'm excited. And I don't know. Do you think it's a coincidence that like this episode comes out and then you see Spider-Man and then you see a season finale next weekend? Okay.
I don't think.
Okay, cool. We're all on the same page.
Especially with who was shown.
Yes,
the kingpin of it all, as we say nowadays. Like I think that is because I was saying to Nikki, that's a Spider-Man villain, that's a Daredevil villain, that's an anybody villain, but he's like street level and a total fucking badass. You know, it's like he's a guy to be afraid of, and like he's not like Doctor Doom or something, but it's like he hangs in there somehow. Kingpin has always hung in there as like he goes further than just a crime lord kind of character.
Yeah.
So.
He killed somebody with a car door. So
yeah.
What a brutal scene. But yeah, I'm excited. Let's see what happens.
Cool. All right. What's next, guys?
Everybody get like a little tiny glass of tea or a cup of tea on a tiny plate that like matches your shirt or something, and like sit in a nice square aspect ratio and kind of look directly. Be centered.
Have some like sideways layered blocking.
Yeah. Right. We're going to talk about French Dispatch, the latest from dollhouse maker Wes Anderson, who sometimes films those dollhouses and puts actors in them, and we get to see it. I think this is an interesting movie for a lot of reasons because it's like it's got everybody in it, and it is so fragmented. You can like some parts and not others. It's like kind of an anthology structure, but it to me is the movie that like we've had the Wes Anderson conversation before. And so I sort of, because of talking to Steve and like different people I know who like some and not others and aren't kind of like just a Wes Anderson fan, I generally find that I like his style, so I don't mind that he works in his style, you know? Mm-hmm. But I do think there's a question of like, is this one he's making where he's totally off in his world doing his thing, or is this one he's making where he's kind of reaching out and doing something either a little different or maybe even trying to get a general audience more interested in his movies. And like, for instance, Grand Budapest Hotel, I remember at the time thinking, wow, this one feels like one that more people should watch because it has a lot going for it. Yeah. Was it Isle of Dogs? Was that the name of it?
Isle of Dogs, yeah.
Like that one was like also the stop motion animation. Maybe people will be drawn to this because of the, it's different. Fantastic Mr. Fox, it seems to have some admirers. This one to me feels like the one that's for fan. Like this movie feels like if you're going to come out of this loving this as a movie, then you're a Wes Anderson fanboy. You know, if you're going to come out of this having enjoyed certain parts and maybe thought others were a little odd, but having, and you know, I hung in there for the experience of watching this movie. I found the density of it a little bit off-putting at times. I luckily I was at home watching it, so I would pause it a couple times, you know, to make sure I didn't miss any details. I'd rewind it a little bit. But I don't know. This one to me feels like this is deep Wes Anderson. This is one where every frame is what we were just saying. Every frame is that super locked down, super planned, super orchestrated Wes Anderson thing that you're either going to love or that's going to be like nails on a chalkboard to you. And I even think this was one of the first times, or one of the rare times, watching one of his movies where I thought his style undercut dramatic moments that were trying to happen between characters because of how stylized his world is in the acting and the editing and everything. I also was incredibly impressed by huge chunks of this movie, though. So I've been dying kind of to hear what you guys think, because you know we're all over the place with Wes Anderson on this podcast, I think. So so somebody else jump in. I mean, was this one of your favorites? One of your least favorites, Ronald? How does it rank up next to the other Wes Anderson movies?
Definitely one of my least favorites. So I felt like this movie felt like it was gaslighting me. I felt like it was telling me I was insane because I felt like I couldn't follow it enough in the beginning. I was like, what the fuck is happening in the first 20 minutes? I was like very confused. But the last two stories to me were like brilliant in a way that I couldn't really handle. Like it really felt like, so I have a conflict with his style of filmmaking. Like, he's one of my favorite directors, but then also like it feels like he feels like the Kanye West of movies. Like, that's where you just like, I'm doing what I want to do. Shut up. You know, he's like, he put on his red hat. He's like, you're like, man, calm down. And he's just kind of all over the place. In his head, he has a full vision of what he's doing. And then when you watch it, you're like, what? This feels so pretentious that like this will be harder for me to show to somebody. I feel like that are more, they're like Royal Tenenbaums is like something I could be like, here, you can understand. This is easy to understand.
Royal Tenenbaums is like watching the Super Bowl compared to this movie, as far as like how accessible it is. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. This is crazy. It's like so fucking. This feels like his like only God forgives for me.
Deep cut. I like it.
There's also a deep cut in terms of that's a people that don't know.
Yeah.
Look in the archives. You'll find out that that was a hotly contested movie. On
it's but this is the thing, man. Like the last story, I kept feeling like this feels like James Baldwin in a way. Like something about this feels like James Baldwin. Like they're doing something with him. Like in the story, like I said, the last two stories, but I liked it. I think I liked it, but there's something. This is my least favorite, and I don't like how crazy he took it. It felt very frantic, like ADHD. Like I was like going crazy a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, like what it was trying to say in the end about like living a full life in art and what the written word is and how powerful it is, and you know, the guy pairing food with every description just. God, man, like it made me kind of emotional.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean though about the movie sometimes undercutting those emotional moments?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's a moment where it's like you're feeling something and then it cuts to someone going like or something that's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I was supposed to be laughing at that, or I don't know. I mean, I don't think these people are misanthropic. I'm reminded a lot of the Coen brothers, not so much because of the style, but when you talk about how stylized their movies can be too, they get a lot of the same criticism of their humor kind of putting a distance between you and the characters and seeming like they don't care about characters. I think Wes Anderson, much more so than the Coen brothers, seems misanthropic, or at least like someone who doesn't really give that much of a shit about human life, you know? Like, he kind of wants to make fun of the idea of being sentimental, even though his movies do hit that point, and I think that is an interesting tug of war. Like I don't think he's a cold fish, maybe I do think he is, but I think he's a cold fish making movies about emotional characters, and so he's there. He almost romanticizes those moments that you're talking about, Ronald. Those moments that get you in the feels. And so he has delivered them so well in the past that this movie surprised me with how, at a couple points, it was like, oh, I wanted to linger in that moment between characters a little bit more. And this movie's much more interested in showing me the next kind of dazzling, camera that pans through rooms and that stuff is amazing. I love that he does so much in-camera stuff. It's just the franticness you're talking about, Ronald, especially the first 20 minutes. You're right, so dense because you'd have to follow the narration of what's going on and what's going on screen.
Yes.
That's why I was glad that I could rewind, because I missed a couple key things watching the beautiful imagery and then realizing, I didn't listen to the last 5 minutes of narration that probably is explaining everything.
Yeah.
Steve, where are you with this one?
Not a fan, man.
Not a fan at all,
yeah.
or just like mixed bag?
I would say it's probably definitely also in the lower of my Wes Anderson rankings.
This is Wes Anderson's Only God Forgives for you.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Actually, it's probably like in the bottom third of his 9 or 10 movies that he's done. Yeah. Like, I feel like it's weird. Like I was watching this, I too felt at times like it was far too dense and like just too much going on. But you can't help but you can't help acknowledge like there's a lot of craft and there's a lot of skill, and like he's definitely very talented filmmaker. And I think that's kind of what always draws me to want to see his movies. And some of his best movies, are some of my favorite movies, of the era, and I think movies like, especially Royal Tenenbaums, Grand Budapest is great as well. Rushmore, Bottle Rocket, like those movies for me probably go more along the line that John was describing of maybe trying to reach a little bit of a bigger audience, or maybe welcome a general audience, into some of his more niche or really kind of more indulgent filmmaking, like this one especially. I think just this, even like the subject matter doesn't really pull me in, like this idea of the periodical, or this just the journalism in general, like the way he's presenting it in this anthology of these 3 short stories. I don't know. It doesn't really kind of pull together for me, outside of there being some interesting performances. Obviously everybody wants to play in his sandbox, and is like, this cast is incredibly, again, dense and, varied, and just kind of, you see a lot of usual faces that, you've seen in his films otherwise, but I mean, some new faces as well. It's weird.
Was this the first time Jeffrey Wright was in one of his movies?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
He was great. His theatricality fits the super controlled tone really well.
I don't know. It's just a weird. It's a weird movie. Like, I don't like the short story element of these standalones, and I think it actually hurts like his ability to kind of emote, like have these characters that you really want to follow. Like, it's such a flash in the pan that you don't really have any I'm personally, like, I don't have any interest in any of the characters in this movie, like, for the most part. Like, I don't think anybody really stood out to me or really had any connection to them.
My favorite story might have been the prison story.
I would say the same thing.
And I was the most plugged into the emotions of those characters. And I thought that, again, I think that it felt like it was building up to something more substantial than this really goofy, silly scene of them like chasing each other around. I still thought that one was pretty successful overall. And as far as commenting on art and life, I think what it had to say was kind of an interesting thing, because it ends with this, I don't know, it's an interesting little parable. But I know what you mean, Steve. I mean, it's kind of the same thing I was saying about just feeling like I was being kept from feeling for these characters, because they are in a vignette, and the way that it's edited, sometimes there's emotional content there and sometimes there's not, but you don't really know whether you're supposed to be laughing at these people or like crying with them. And the movie repeatedly comes back to Bill Murray's character, who's the editor, and his passing is sort of the thing that sets off this reminiscing about these 3 reprints.
Periodical. Yeah.
The writers that this editor protected and shepherded through their careers in this publication. Right. We're seeing an example of each one of them and maybe how he interacted with them. But like, yeah, I feel like it is kind of hard to know how you're supposed to get an emotional beat on, say, like Frances McDormand, who's very effective in her scenes. But I'm like, am I supposed to think, is she like one of those Coen brothers characters who's like a comic grotesque a little bit? We're supposed to think she's a joke, or are we supposed to sort of feel for her? And again, I'm not saying I'm unsophisticated. I didn't get it. I'm saying I think the movie continually kind of prevents you from understanding whether those stakes are supposed to be real. I do think, though, the loving recreation of the type of magazine that they're doing, like right down to the end credits that have like cover illustrations from issues that don't exist, that stuff was the detail of that and how much it relates to like the New Yorker style of like literary magazine. Like I liked that, but I agree with you, Steve, that like it just shows you what a niche item this is. I mean, this is the ultimate like sandbox movie for him, so much so that I was like spending the first part of the movie going, I just want this play set. Like it reminds me of when I was a kid and we would draw these rabbit holes. We would do a line at the top of the page and then we would do a rabbit hole coming down and we would draw rooms and the tunnels of the rabbit hole would go down the page and branch off, and you would say like, oh, this is the TV room and this is the room with the pool, and everybody was drawing their little rabbit warrens. I remember in like 3rd or 4th grade. And I remember like you wanted to crawl into that. You would look at that drawing you'd done and you would just want to live in it, you know? And I think that Wes Anderson's movies have that quality to them.
Yeah.
Like it's like a toy that you want to play with. And so I get it. And I forget which one of you it was that said, maybe it was you, Ronald, talking about his ability to bring these things into existence. It's like, it is cool that he's got the budget and the access to do this perfect version of this crazy vision, you know? Like, it's amazing how controlled it is. And it's amazing how beautiful those images are. But do they add up does this movie cohere into anything really satisfying? I think at the end, you're picking the parts you liked. Like, it seems like we all did that. You just picked the parts. This doesn't really feel like it has a central thrust or story to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did feel like it kind of, I mean, for the only really, I guess, general positive thing, I feel like I didn't feel the length of it like I thought I would. I feel like it kind of moved enough at a clip that I didn't really, you know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like the running time really didn't affect me at all. Which I thought it was going to after the first half an hour, like, you know, based on what Ronald had said, you know, like how much was happening. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be 2 hours or whatever. Like, this is going to be tough. It's weird. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I know this movie did okay in its box office, especially for like a specialty release. And I'm happy for that. Like, you know, I want him to keep making movies because I do always want to see his movies. I do think he's a really interesting filmmaker, and I like the majority of his movies, and I love like 3 or 4 of them. So it's like, you know, his batting average is pretty high for me. I just like some of these, like this specifically is one of them that just feels I feel so out of touch with, you know, even though I can admire the craft and the skill that he brings. It's just there's nothing there for me really, or not enough there for me rather.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
like think about Buster Scruggs, which is the Coen brothers version of roughly the same anthology structure. Much more satisfying overall movie, I think, than this one.
Absolutely agree. Like, that's a great comparison. Yeah, like totally. That's, you know, yes, they're cut from the same kind of cloth. Like but again, that connection to characters, you know, definitely emotional attachments, way more entertaining. And you still see the level of craft and skill on the screen. And it's like just a different experience altogether for me. But I mean, different movies, obviously, but a very good comparison though. Yeah, I don't know. So it's I wish I could say something nicer, but yeah. All right, cool. Well, what else? I mean, let's go through a couple other, if there's anything else that you guys have seen. I know Ronald, do we have any crossover? I finally, really quickly, I finally saw The Green Knight, just to mention.
I think there was a crossover
on the podcast. I know you guys have talked about it, I think twice before. But yeah, I don't know, not to spend too much time on it, but I do want to say I thought it was great. And Lowry was such an interesting filmmaker, and the cast was amazing. Love Dev Patel. Love Joel Edgerton. I love seeing him in anything that he does as an actor, as a writer, director. I'm always happy to see and support him. But yeah, just a really interesting story. And just totally engaged the whole runtime. Like, I'm glad I finally got around to seeing it because I really wanted to sit down and focus on it and pay attention to it. based off of what you guys had said. And yeah, I really liked it a lot.
Cool. I'm glad, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has that eeriness that you get with Arthurian legends, and I think that's something that I just think sets it apart from, like, there's some weird imagery, there's some weird power this movie has because it does feel like it's not trying to give you the usual, like, mythic story that even that you might have expected from the trailer, but like, no, it's like when you were talking about it, having seen it, it's like there's so many images that just come right back to my brain. I've only seen it once, and I can't forget certain things. And this was months and months ago that I saw it. So it's like, yeah, definitely one that has staying power for me.
For sure. What'd you see, Ronald? What do you want to mention?
Really, only one movie. So a couple months ago, Aaron kind of insisted that I see the movie Krampus. Loved it. I really did. Like, on a loved it. And I remember you guys talking about how much you loved it. But then
It's fun, yeah.
very recently the Naughty Cut came out, the 4K remaster of this movie with Atmos. Man, are you talking about a sound stage that kind of changes the feel of the entire movie? Like, it's spooky. Like, it's the I've never had all of my speakers working at the same time. Besides maybe this year, the Bond film, No Time to Die. That really is like a good soundstage. But like, this was unexpected, man. The wind blowing kind of all at once created this, like, I got chills. And then they do this effect with the guys in the attic kind of running around. It really feels atmospheric. And I think it's the best use of surround sound I've ever heard for like a movie on this scale. Like, it should not have been this good. Like, it was incredible. It changed my entire experience. So I'm like, awesome. I came out of this movie being like, man, like, I can't put this movie in my top 10, but because it came out years ago, but goddamn, would I have wanted to if this thing released
you
this year.
You could say your best viewing experiences.
Yeah,
like
yeah. God, oh, incredible. Knocked me off my feet. I mean, I was sitting down, so that was physically impossible, but it was really good.
Knocked you on your feet and then back off.
Yeah.
Feet,
The wind blew me up, and then it knocked me back down on my ass. That's it. That's all I really saw this week.
That's it. Okay.
You mentioned Swan song.
Yeah. What about that?
Yeah, Ronald. Just a quick thought on that. Did you like it?
Yeah, man. But if you want to cry,
I started watching it and didn't have time to finish it today, and I liked what I saw, but it was definitely like, wow, it jumps into a mood, and yeah, it's a wallower.
Yeah. Awkwafina coming through with a really cool, subtle. I mean, the plot's pretty simple. This guy kind of signs up for this program that will replace him because he's dying of a deadly disease, and it'll replace him with a person.
Very vaguely defined cancer. They just kind of go cancer, but it's like it's cancer-ish. It's
cancer of the body,
cancer of the death, cancer of the life.
Yeah, and so he signs up for this program to be replaced with somebody that looks exactly like him, has his memories, has his personality, and it's a trip, man. It really gets you thinking about life and death and what this life means, and would you do this if you could replace yourself? And the only way that it can work is if he doesn't tell his wife, because it kind of breaks the continuity. And so he has this real hard decision to make about if he signed up for it already, so he has to do it. And will he break that contract because he doesn't want to leave on the terms that this death has kind of presented to him.
What was the Paul Rudd show that had a similar premise? It was living with yourself, living with myself. Something like that.
Yeah, the Netflix series.
I mean, it was a similar idea of like he went to a service that was going to like supposedly improve you, but what it really did was kill you and send a better version of you
Oh
into your
no.
life. But then he survived the process of being disposed of and then tried to get back into his life. I mean, it was pretty interesting, but it felt like it was ramping up to something maybe better and bigger at that right when it wrapped up. But
Yeah.
this movie, Ronald, it's almost like a philosophical question. I've always thought this about teleporting. Whenever they say all of your molecules are taken apart and then speeding across the galaxy, and then they're reconstituted on the other end by a machine.
Yeah.
I've always thought, oh, you died, and then an exact copy of you got made on the other end. So
Ooh.
to everybody else, you're the same person, but as far as you're concerned, you stopped. If you get smashed into atoms and then reconstituted,
Yeah.
you're gone and back. You're not the same person. So I've always
Right.
seemed like every time someone teleports on Star Trek or whatever, or maybe they don't call it teleporting, whatever they do, but like I've always thought like, oh yeah, that's Shatner died. Kirk just died and then got put back together on the other side. Not so to
Right.
me this is a movie that's dealing with that idea of like, how do you feel about the idea of you continuing, some version of you continuing, but you don't get to be around. You're not conscious of that. You don't get to enjoy that. It's really for everybody else in this case.
It's heavy,
Like,
man.
it's an interesting idea, but I feel like to me, in some ways, it's like an easy no. It's like, well, no, I don't think I would like that very
Yeah,
much.
at
I
all.
don't think it doesn't seem that necessary, but I do think it gets into some of those questions of, we've talked about this before as parents, Steve, just the whole thing of like not being around anymore,
Yeah.
or as a son, Ronald, like not having someone around anymore. Like we've talked about that notion. It's like, is it better for them to always be around?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say no. That's not inherently better, but it's also like, well, if you could choose one more day, one more week, one more year with somebody, maybe that you would. I don't know. It's an interesting idea.
It's wild.
And
man.
Mahershala Ali is good, and you're right. Aquafina, they make this crazy high concept idea, at least in the first half that I've seen. They sell it reasonably well.
They do. It really feels like it's a gradual sort of thing that would happen in the society depicted in the movie. So it's worth checking out, man. It's a tearjerker. It's a real tearjerker. Mahershala just does sad in a way that I just wasn't prepared for. I wasn't prepared for it.
Well, he's got a hangdog expression. He's got one of those faces that you just look at him. If his resting expression is like looking into the middle distance, thinking about what might have been kind of face.
Yes.
I think that he's great for that.
Yeah, man.
Steve, anything else? What'd you watch?
Yeah, I was gonna just mention the I did watch over the weekend. I saw the new Netflix movie, The Unforgivable, the Sandra Bullock movie.
How was it?
Sandra Bullock, Vincent D'Onofrio. I mean, really impressive cast. Who else? Viola Davis has a small part in it. The movie's okay. I mean, like, it doesn't stand out to me, to be honest. Like, after reading more about it, like it's kind of based on this British miniseries that it seems like something that would need to be a miniseries. Like a lot of the stuff that it's dealing with, like the moral repercussions of a crime that happens that her character is in prison for, and the movie is kind of picking up from her getting out of prison and flashing back to like slowly let us know what actually happened during this crime that kind of altered her life and some of the lives of people around her. So, I mean, like that kind of stuff really to be given more time to air out some of the moral repercussions of what happens, especially when you find out the quote unquote mystery of it all. It's not a huge mystery, but I mean, as the movie moves along, I think like, I found myself wanting to kind of explore some of those themes more. Like, I feel like I would have bought the performance more. I mean, that said, I think she's really good in the movie. I mean, I really like Sandra Bullock and Vincent D'Onofrio, kind of mentioning him earlier in the podcast. Like, he's not in the movie a lot, but he's really quite good in it. I feel like it's the kind of movie that a lot of people will really like, though. And I mean, I feel like it's kind of like a down the middle kind of drama that will appeal to a lot of moviegoers. I mean, like, it's a Netflix original film and is available to millions, hundreds of, I don't know what their subscriber count is now. I think it's hundreds of million. But I mean,
I'm curious. Of billions.
I'm curious to see if where it hits with the viewing for that top 10 site that they've released. I don't think it's actually clocked in yet. Well, actually today actually did. So yeah, like 86 million hours viewed. So obviously number one. on their site. But with her history with Netflix and the bird box of it all, it was kind of like a while since she's done a Netflix thing. So a lot of people were curious how this movie would do, and that's a pretty huge number. I don't know. I guess I would say I'd recommend checking it out. I mean, I think Aaron liked it more than I did, and I think people that I have told about it liked it a lot more than I did. So I mean, it does seem like a pretty mass appeal type of movie. Partly again because I think everybody really likes Sandra Bullock, and for good reason. Like, she's really good in the movie. Okay. There's some really great tense scenes in the movie, especially in the third act. Oh yeah, John Barenthal is also in it, who I love. But yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, again, the performances are all good, but the movie is kind of just like an average movie because I don't really think it gets enough time to deal with how heavy what happens in the movie is, and it kind of moves around. It moves very fast once you kind of see what's happening. But it's on Netflix, so if you have Netflix, it's already there for you. So maybe check it out. Maybe you'll like it a lot more than I did, because again, it seems to be a movie that's connecting with a lot of people, and the kind of thing where you have that disconnect between viewer ratings and critic ratings, and we are viewers. I don't think any of us really, we're not critics. We're just moviegoers, and I feel like
enthusiasts.
I'm a little on the lower end for this one, but. I could be wrong. I mean, I'd be curious to see what you guys think of it once you check it out. But if you check it out, yeah, it's The Unforgivable, and it's on Netflix now.
Steve, didn't you mention you saw the Sex and the City reboot or whatever?
Oh yeah, yeah, we can mention that.
I mean, I didn't see it, but I was curious to know what you thought. I know that there's been a lot of people talking about it. There's one big thing that got spoiled, I think, for everybody, if you listen to any kind of pop culture, news or sites, but. Anyway, yeah, talk about it. Were you a fan of the original show, and how do you feel this one stacks up? And what do you think about the movies in between?
I love the show. I love Sex and the City. I've always been a fan. And fortunately, one time when I was in New York, I happened upon them filming a scene of Sex and the City.
Wow.
With Carrie and Big, and met Sarah Jessica Parker, and it was amazing. So that probably skews my love for the show, because that just made me fall in love with it even more. But yeah, the show I'm a big fan of. The movies I'm not such a fan of. I don't really like the movies that much. The first one more than the second. I think the second one is really bad.
Everyone seems to. I mean, I haven't heard a single person that likes
it. It's a really not good movie. And it does. I think it actually hurts the franchise or the IP. And I mean, this one, I've only seen the first 2 episodes because they're kind of doing like a rollout. HBO Max is doing like a batch release, and then single episodes after that. But yeah, I mean, the big the big ending of the season premiere, it's called And Just Like That, is the name of the series. It's not like Sex in the City. It's And Just Like That is the show. Okay. Big ending at the first episode that's been very divisive, and
big ending. Yeah.
I'm not gonna. I don't know if I should say anything. I don't know. I probably shouldn't, but it's all over the internet. If you it's not going to really impact my feeling about the show. So far, I'm not really loving the show, to be honest. The first 2 episodes feel like they've really kind of slogged along, and it's mainly because of what happens at the end of that first episode. Yeah. So I'm really kind of hoping that as the series kicks into what it's going to actually be, that the preview for the rest of the season looks pretty promising. It looks a little more where would these characters be, in their 50s or whatever, which is kind of what I want to watch. I personally am not a fan of how that first episode ended. And I don't want to, obviously I won't say any, I don't know.
Well, no, it feels like a choice. It feels like a definite,
I'm tiptoeing around it. Yeah. I definitely can see why they did what they did. And I think it's a bit of a flex because, look what the internet's talking about. Look what it's done to the stocks of certain companies that have any association with what happens at the end of that first episode. It's kind of fucking crazy.
Right.
But,
No, that's true.
It's done something to kind of shake up, and the show is everywhere. And they announced that it's the highest watched HBO program on the Max service, and I think on the regular HBO, and I don't know how long. So, that's obviously a big win for Warner Media, but right. I'm really optimistic about the show. I'm happy to see these characters again in a different phase of their lives. and it just feels nice and cozy to see some of my favorite characters from the series, and not just the leads. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes. The Samantha of it all really bothers me, like not having her involved with the show. And
Right.
much respect to Kim Cattrall for not wanting to, for reasons that she has, but the way they deal with it in the show is a little weak for me. But again, I'm optimistic for the show because I do think it's going to probably get to a point where it kind of settles into what it wants to be once it gets past this front heavy event that kind of kicks off probably what the show will be. But that's on HBO Max, and that's they're doing, like, I think the first 2 episodes and then an episode a week, or every Thursday I think a new episode comes out. So
Cool.
So everything's coming back now. I mean, I know we've said this many times before, but Ronald, is there anything you hope doesn't come back? Is there anything you think ended well, like in that range of things that are getting rebooted now? Is there something where you don't want to see them come back and do? Now it's 10 years later. Let's look at the cast. 10 to 15 years later. Let's look at the cast.
right.
If you could call a moratorium on one thing, say don't reboot it, don't touch it.
Friends.
Oh, okay.
I agree, and I think they've said they never will, and I hope they don't.
Look, man. I mean, what's being done really well that I like is Saved by the Bell. Like,
Right.
boy, did the second season hold up to the first. Like, I don't know who's in this writer's room, but they're shitting out gold these days. Hot damn. Yeah, just wildly good. Yeah, so like, I'll say that, and then I was I was really doubtful about the Saved by the Bell reboot, or
Yeah, it's a reboot,
I
right?
guess it's a reboot, or
I know there's probably
sequel.
rules about when you can say reboot. I think people want to say reboot when it's like a new version, but it's not like officially a remake.
Right.
But I think
Right.
that line gets blurred so much that we now have reboots that are that are like stealth remakes or
Yeah.
stealth sequels or whatever. So I think that all bets are off. Reboot just kind of means, to me, it just means like they're trying to jumpstart something
Yes.
that was dead.
Yes.
However they're doing it,
Yeah. But it's a good reboot. If you guys ever liked Saved by the Bell, this is a cool show that really takes care of all the old cast and still, it has a lot of reverence for the previous, generation of Saved by the Bell, and still involves them in really cool
That's
ways.
a crazy thing to say with a straight face.
Yeah, it's
Has a lot
weird.
of reverence for the previous incarnation.
Yeah,
of Saved by the
it's
Bell.
crazy. And they do a cool homage to Screech that was super emotional. Yeah, it's cool. It's solid.
All right.
John, did you want to mention
Oh yeah.
Station? Yeah, Station. Yeah.
Station 11. I'll just say, like, next week we're probably going to do a little bit of a segment on it after we've all watched some episodes of that. But it's a new HBO show that is out this week, and it is, it's a downer. It's a super downer. It's got a couple of cool character relations in it, but I mean, it's a sort of pandemic end of world scenario, or at least it seems to be. And it's based on a book I had been meaning to read for several years, and I might still pick it up. But it just is such downer. Just the whole idea of like dramatizing an event like that takes out so many people and changes the world. It's a lot to ask. But I would say I was glad I did it, because once I was 15, 20 minutes in, I got how this is a story about characters that I might want to follow. And there are just different sets of characters. It's, I think, set in at least 3 different timelines. Like there's like a far future after the event sort of timeline. There's a kind of right after the event timeline, and then there's seemingly a timeline of before that. But I don't know how much we're going to get as it rolls along. I only watched the first one. I believe the first 3 are available this weekend. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think they're doing that kind of get you interested thing.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
me
yeah.
think that, like, because the first episode comes really close to feeling like it seals the deal in terms of the concept. I can imagine that maybe after the first 3, it will have its hooks in you, or not, maybe. But I liked what I saw. Once I got past the do I really want to watch this part of it, you get to enjoy those HBO production values, and also, there is some meat here. There's a couple of, like, there's a man and a young girl that are thrown together because of weird circumstances, and the way their relationship develops, to me, feels like, oh, that's kind of interesting and cool to picture. Like, okay, what if you were dealing with the apocalypse and you suddenly had to take care of an 8-year-old who you didn't know,
Yeah.
That feels like a show to me somehow.
There's
So-
one coming out really soon on HBO based on a video game. That's
Oh
crazy.
yeah, The Last of Us, right?
That's
Yeah.
so
Well, I mean,
crazy.
HBO is in the
So yeah,
apocalypse.
this is all
apocalypse business.
HBO, by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah,
This
Station
is
11.
Crazy.
Station 11 as well.
Wow.
Well, let me say
funny-
this too, like, similar apocalyptic scenario. Why the Last Man is a show that recently came out and didn't really get much traction and got canceled, after one season. That was one where I was on board after one episode to see how it went, but I kind of felt like, is this too grim, or it just feels like it's not fun? I did not feel compelled to come back and watch that one. This show felt like a similar barrier to entry because of the downer subject matter, but a better, just a more energetic show, a more it's got more likable characters in it. Maybe that's a prerequisite sometimes for this type of story. If it's a downer story, you need to root for people.
Okay. Yeah.
Funny, yeah. I can't wait to see this. I've been waiting for this for a while because funny story, it's kind of spooky because pre-pandemic, literally in late January of I don't fucking what is it 2020. I was in Chicago with my friend Dustin when we were seeing a band that we kind of get together to go see out there, and when we were
Blues
walking
Brothers?
around, what's that?
That was Blues Brothers.
What's
It's
it-
a bad joke. I was just thinking the Chicago band.
Right. No, that's a good tie-in. Good call. But yeah, we were just walking around downtown Chicago by the Navy Pier one day while we were there, that short week or that long weekend that we went. And they were filming this series when we were down at the Navy Pier. And they kind of had it dressed as this snowy look, kind of worn. I didn't know what it was when we saw it. But then when we went back to the room, I kind of was trying to look it up and see what was filming in the area. And I was like, oh, because I thought that I saw a thing for Himesh Patel, like a sign for him. And then I saw that it was Station 11. I was like, fuck, I just saw that. And that's what they were doing. And I'm aware of it. And I think it's actually one of the books that where I work publishes. So people are very talky about it at my job. I think it's one of our books. A friend of the pod, Amanda, always talks about it or has been tweeting about it. That's something that she's really looking forward to. But it was really just kind of eerie to be before anybody knew what COVID was, it was I stumbled upon the set of a post-pandemic HBO series, and then a month and a half later, we're kind of in a pandemic, and it was very spooky. But I can't wait to see this series. I love so many members of the cast and the production team, the directors, Hiro from
Atlanta, right?
Hiro Muraya from Atlanta.
I mean, that's all you need to tell me.
The majority of,
Yeah.
if not at least co-directs on the majority, if not all the episodes.
Mhm.
But yeah, can't wait to watch this. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about whatever episodes we're able to talk about next week based on the embargoes. But
So anybody listening, check out the episodes that are out there so that you can join in. You can shout.
yeah, I
out
think
there.
you're right. I think it is the first 2 or 3 episodes that come out this week. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what I think
catch up with us.
they're doing the same thing that they did for the sex lives of college girls, where they're putting a bunch out the first week and then dropping 2 each week after that. I think just to kind of get it out of here before the end of the year, to be completely honest, so that it's accessible on the site, but on the service. But yeah, first 5 we're going to be talking about next week. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anything else you guys want to mention before we dip out?
Yeah. It's good on my end.
Okay, good. Movieschmovie.com is the website. All the social media sites is just .com/movieschmovie, except for YouTube. YouTube.com/ what is it? Movie Schmovie Pod? Movie Pod? What do we
Movie
got wrong?
Schmovie podcast.
Movie Schmovie Podcast.
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
I can never remember. We got it wrong so many times, so many years. And now we finally have it right, and I still don't remember it.
Yeah.
Movie Schmovie Podcast. If you want that audio and video portion of the podcast. But if
Tell
you just
people
wanna-
about it. Tell people about it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the people that give us compliments, tell people about the podcast.
Right. Whether you want to listen only or watch and listen,
Yeah.
whatever you prefer, go to the movieschmovie.com. Just tell them to go to the movieschmovie.com website. Everything is there.
Don't keep it classy. Don't keep it
Yeah.
classy. Be like
They-
a weird
they-
fan
they can
person
pick
about it.
however
Yeah.
they want to
Kid.
listen or join us. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been at
annoying.
it for a while, and We just want more people to join us. That's all.
You should be pestering people. People should be like, shut the fuck up about Movie Schmovie. And you're like,
Yeah.
just listen, god damn it.
Yeah.
Mom.
If you ask somebody if they're not listening to if they're listening to Movie Schmovie and they say no, do a spit take. Just whatever liquid you have, what? And stare at them.
Yeah.
It'll work.
What's an appropriate amount of time to stare before you proceed with that conversation?
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Okay.
2
Mississippi.
Mississippis.
Just for people taking note, you've heard it from Ronald. 2
Yeah,
Mississippis.
2
and then you
Mississippis.
Proceed with the URL to tell them where to find us.
Yeah.
But cool. All right, man. Well, let's wrap it up. Again, we'll be back next week. We'll talk about Station 11 a little more. A few of us will hopefully have seen Spider-Man No Way Home. And probably talk the Hawkeye finale too. Just a whole bunch of stuff next week. So, all right, man. Good seeing you guys. As always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.
No crying.